Hey everyone, Spencer here with SB Mowing, and I started a GoFundMe a couple months ago that raised almost $1 million for an amazing lady named Beth.
For years, Spencer from SB Mowing was known as the guy who transformed forgotten yards into beautiful landscapes. But one simple cleanup changed everything. A neglected lawn belonging to an elderly woman named Beth turned into a viral sensation, leading to nearly $893,000 in donations and sparking a worldwide debate. Was this the ultimate example of human kindness, or was there something happening behind the scenes that viewers never saw? Today, we uncover the shocking story behind SB Mowing's biggest moment, the questions critics raised, and the truth behind the viral lawn that inspired thousands. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. The lawn that changed everything. When people think about SB Mowing, they often picture perfectly restored yards, dramatic before and after transformations, and emotional moments between Spencer and the homeowners he helps. But behind the millions of views, the viral clips, and the overwhelming support from strangers around the world, there was one lawn that changed the direction of everything. A single overgrown property, a single elderly woman, and one simple act of kindness that became an internet phenomenon. The story began in southwest Arkansas, where Spencer arrived at a property that looked almost impossible to save. The yard was not just messy, it was completely overtaken by nature. Tall weeds covered large sections of the property. Thick vines wrapped around fences. Grass had grown so high that pathways were almost impossible to recognize. The entire area looked abandoned, like years of neglect had allowed the landscape to reclaim the home. For many people, the cleanup would have been overwhelming, but for Spencer, this was exactly the kind of challenge that inspired him. His mission had never been just about mowing grass. It was about helping people who needed assistance. It was about restoring something that had been forgotten. And most importantly, it was about showing that even a simple action could have a meaningful impact. When Spencer started his mower, he began the process one section at a time. There were no shortcuts, no easy solutions. Every part of the property required patience. He cleared the tall grass, removed stubborn weeds, uncovered hidden pathways, and slowly brought order back to a place that had been consumed by overgrowth. As the hours passed, the transformation became impossible to ignore. The yard that once looked hopeless started becoming recognizable again. The fences returned, the walkways became visible, the property began looking like a home again. But the real story was not the grass, it was the person behind the property. Beth, an 85-year-old woman, had been struggling with mobility issues that made maintaining such a large yard nearly impossible. The overgrown condition of the property had even resulted in concerns from local officials and financial penalties. For someone facing those challenges, Spencer's work represented more than landscaping. It represented relief. It represented dignity. It represented someone finally stepping in to help. When the transformation was complete, Spencer did what he had done many times before. He shared the story online. At first, it seemed like another heartfelt SB Mowing video. A simple story of kindness, a neglected yard restored, a homeowner receiving help. But then something unexpected happened. The internet reacted in a way nobody predicted. Thousands of viewers watched the transformation unfold. People commented about how inspiring the story was. Many said the video reminded them that kindness still existed in a world often filled with negativity. And then the donations started. At first, they came in small amounts, a few dollars here, a few dollars there. But as more people discovered Beth's story, the numbers began rising faster than anyone could imagine. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became hundreds of thousands. Soon, the fundraiser reached an unbelievable amount, nearly $893,000. A simple lawn cleanup had turned into one of the most surprising examples of online generosity. The money helped fund major improvements for Beth's home, including accessibility upgrades, repairs, and changes that made daily life safer and easier. For many people watching, it was a reminder that one person's kindness could create a massive ripple effect. But as the story grew bigger, something else grew alongside it. Questions. Because whenever something becomes too incredible to believe, people naturally start looking for answers. Could a single lawn really inspire almost $1 million in donations? Was everything exactly as it appeared? Or was there more happening behind the cameras? Viral miracle? Or internet controversy? The moment SB Mowing's $893,000 fundraiser became public, the reaction was divided. Many people saw the story as a perfect example of generosity, a young man helping someone in need, a community coming together. And a young man helping someone in need. a community coming together, a reminder that compassion could still spread online. But others were skeptical. They wanted to know how something so simple became so massive. Social media immediately became filled with discussions. Some viewers questioned whether the encounters shown in SB Mowing videos were completely spontaneous. Others wondered whether emotional moments were edited in a way designed to maximize reactions. The rise of viral content has created a new era where kindness, entertainment, and business often exist together. A heartfelt video can also generate millions of views. Millions of views can create revenue. And that reality caused some people to question whether the motivation behind these videos was purely about helping others. Critics argued that emotional storytelling had become a powerful tool on platforms like YouTube and TikTok. A dramatic transformation, a touching conversation, a surprised homeowner. These moments naturally attract attention, and attention online can become valuable. Some people even questioned whether mowing someone's property without a formal request could create ethical concerns. Although the intention may be positive, they argued that helping someone should always involve respect, communication, and consent. The debate became almost as widespread as the original video. Supporters defended Spencer, pointing out that regardless of online popularity, the results were real. Beth received assistance. Her home became safer. Her quality of life improved. Thousands of people willingly contributed because they believed in the message behind the story, and that was something critics could not ignore. Even if people debated the presentation, the impact was undeniable. The fundraiser changed Beth's circumstances. It inspired others to help people in their own communities, and it showed how powerful one act of service could become when shared with the world. However, the biggest question remained: what was the real story behind Spencer himself? Because before SB Mowing became a global name, before millions watched his videos, and before a single lawn raised nearly $893,000, Spencer was just a kid with an old mower trying to help his neighbors. And that humble beginning explains why this viral moment became possible in the first place. The humble beginning of SB Mowing, long before the millions of views, the viral transformations, and the nearly $893,000 donation that shocked the internet. Spencer was simply a young boy from Wichita, Kansas, with a mower and a desire to help. His story did not begin with fame. It did not begin with social media. It began with hard work. When Spencer was only 11 years old, he discovered something that would eventually shape his entire future. He enjoyed mowing lawns. For many kids, mowing the grass might have been nothing more than a household chore. But for Spencer, it became an opportunity. He saw it as a way to be useful, a way to earn money, and most importantly, a way to create something positive for the people around him. His first piece of equipment was far from impressive. It was an old hand-me-down mower that was loud, worn out, and far from perfect. But Spencer did not see the limitations of the machine. He saw possibility. With that mower, he began going door to door around his neighborhood, asking homeowners if they needed help maintaining their yards. At an age when most kids were focused on hobbies, games, and school activities, Spencer was already learning lessons about responsibility and commitment. The work was not easy. Kansas summers could be brutal. The heat was intense. The days were long, and every lawn presented a different challenge. Some yards required hours of cutting, others were filled with weeds, difficult terrain, or areas that had been neglected for years. But Spencer continued showing up. He learned something that would become one of the foundations of SB Mowing. Trust is earned through consistency. A single good job might impress someone, but showing up repeatedly, completing the work, and treating people with respect creates something much stronger: a reputation. Slowly, neighbors began recognizing Spencer as more than just a kid with a mower. He became someone they could depend on, someone who would arrive when he promised, someone who would put effort into every project. The small lawn business continued growing. What started as a simple neighborhood service became a lesson in entrepreneurship. Spencer learned how to communicate with customers. He learned how to manage his time. He learned that quality work mattered, even when nobody was watching. These early experiences shaped the person behind SB Mowing, because years later, when millions of people questioned how one person could inspire such generosity, the answer was found in those early years. The viral success did not happen overnight. It was built through years of discipline, years of helping people, and years of understanding that even small actions could make a difference. But Spencer's journey was about to enter a new chapter. By the time he reached high school, the simple neighborhood lawn service had transformed into something much bigger. The old mower was replaced, the jobs became larger, and the boy who once pushed a broken machine through local streets began building the foundation for a business that would eventually reach millions of people around the world. From side hustle to internet phenomenon, by the time Spencer entered high school, mowing lawns was no longer just a small childhood project. It had become a serious operation. The boy who started with a basic mower began investing in better equipment and expanding his ability to take on bigger challenges. One of his biggest upgrades came when he purchased a second-hand zero-turn mower. It was not brand new, it was not perfect, but compared to the equipment he started with, it represented progress. He also acquired an older trailer, giving him more freedom to travel between jobs and serve more customers. Every improvement was earned through his own effort. Nothing was handed to him. Each purchase represented hours of work under the sun, completing one yard after another. Spencer also learned skills beyond landscaping. Even something as simple as learning to drive a stick-shift vehicle became another important milestone. At first, it was difficult. There were stalled engines, frustrating moments, mistakes that had to be corrected, but Spencer kept practicing until he mastered it. That mindset became a pattern throughout his life. When something was difficult, he did not walk away. He learned, he adapted, he improved. As his business grew, so did his reputation. People no longer saw him as just a teenager trying to make extra money. They saw someone who took pride in his work, someone who cared about the details, someone who transformed ordinary lawns into spaces people could be proud of. But his journey was not only about mowing, it was also about discovering what kind of work truly fulfilled him. After high school, Spencer attended Kansas State University, where he studied computer science. On paper, it seemed like a practical choice. Technology offered stability, a reliable career, a predictable future. During college, Spencer focused on his studies while also taking on additional responsibilities. He worked as a resident assistant, learning how to manage people, solve problems, and handle unexpected situations. He also became involved in music, joining an a cappella group as a way to balance the stress of university life. But despite his success in academics, something was missing. During breaks from school, Spencer continued returning to his lawn business, and every time he did, he felt something different. There was something satisfying about physical work, something rewarding about seeing immediate results. A computer project could take weeks to complete, a report could disappear into a grading system, but a lawn transformation was visible. You could stand back and see exactly what your effort created. A messy yard became clean. A neglected space became beautiful. A frustrated homeowner became grateful. That feeling stayed with Spencer. After graduating in 2021, he accepted a remote software job in Chicago. It offered security, a stable income, and a comfortable lifestyle. But deep down, Spencer felt disconnected. The work was safe, but it did not provide the same sense of purpose he found while mowing lawns. Then something happened that changed his perspective. While browsing social media, Spencer discovered videos showing people restoring neglected properties. The formula was simple: messy yard, hard work, amazing transformation. But millions of people were watching. They were not only interested in the final result, they were interested in the story, the kindness, the human connection. That was when Spencer realized something important. The thing he had been doing for years could become something much bigger. He could combine his skills with storytelling. He could use video to inspire people. He could show the world that helping someone did not always require money, fame, or a huge organization. Sometimes it started with something as simple as a mower, and that realization became the beginning of SB Mowing's transformation from a local service into a global movement. But even after building an audience, Spencer still faced the biggest challenge of all. Could he convince millions of people that his acts of kindness were genuine? Or would internet fame change how people viewed his mission? The truth behind the $893,000 miracle. When SB Mowing began gaining attention online, Spencer found himself in a position he never expected. A simple lawn service had transformed into a worldwide platform. Millions of people were watching his videos, people were sharing his transformations, and strangers were becoming emotionally invested in the lives of homeowners he helped. But with that attention came something every viral creator eventually faces: questions. The bigger SB Mowing became, the more people wanted to understand what was happening behind the scenes. Was every encounter genuine? Were these transformations planned? Was the emotional storytelling simply a strategy to gain views? These questions became louder after the story of Beth and the $893,000 fundraiser spread across the internet. Some viewers struggled to believe that one lawn could inspire such an extraordinary response. They wondered how a simple yard cleanup could motivate thousands of strangers to donate such a massive amount of money. But those questions overlooked something important. The fundraiser was not successful because of grass. It was successful because people connected with the human story behind it. They saw an elderly woman struggling. They saw someone step in to help, and they saw an opportunity to make a meaningful difference. The reason Beth's story resonated with so many people was because it represented something larger than landscaping. It represented community, compassion, and the idea that people still cared about strangers. As the story gained attention, details surrounding Beth's situation began receiving closer examination. Reports confirmed that she was genuinely facing challenges with maintaining her property. Her mobility limitations made it difficult for her to handle the overgrown yard herself. The problems were not simply created for a video, they were real issues affecting a real person. The money raised was also intended to address practical needs. The improvements were not about luxury, they were about making her home safer and more accessible. Repairs were completed, accessibility upgrades were added, and the support provided meaningful changes to her daily life. For Spencer, the moment represented the exact reason he started helping people in the first place. The goal was never simply to create viral content. The goal was to solve problems. The cameras came later, the audience came later, the mission came first, and perhaps the most important evidence of SB Mowing's impact was not the money raised. It was the reaction afterward. People who watched Spencer's videos began doing similar things in their own communities. They helped neighbors. They cleaned abandoned spaces. They offered assistance to people who needed it. A single lawn transformation encouraged countless others to take action. That was the true power of the story. It showed that kindness could spread. One person's decision to help could inspire thousands of others to do the same. The legacy of SB Mowing. The story of SB Mowing was never really just about cutting grass. It was never only about overgrown yards, powerful mowers, or viral videos. At its core, it was about using a simple skill to connect with people and make a difference in their lives. Long before millions of viewers knew his name, Spencer was just an 11-year-old boy pushing an old mower through neighborhood streets. There were no cameras following him, no massive audience waiting for his next video, and no headlines talking about his work. There was only a young kid with determination, a desire to help, and a willingness to work hard. Those early experiences shaped everything that came later. They taught Spencer the importance of discipline, patience, responsibility, and treating every person with kindness and respect. Even after SB Mowing became a global phenomenon, those same values remained at the center of his work. That is what made his videos connect with so many people. Viewers were not only watching grass being cut or yards being restored, they were watching stories unfold. They were seeing that behind every neglected property was a person with struggles, challenges, and a life that mattered. The $893,000 donation connected to Beth's story became one of the most surprising examples of online generosity. But the money itself was only one part of the impact. The bigger message was about what people were willing to do when they saw someone helping another person. SB Mowing showed that kindness could still stand out in a world filled with negativity. Despite questions surrounding viral content, one truth remained. Real people were helped, lives were improved, and a simple lawn transformation inspired millions. It proved that even the smallest acts of generosity can create the biggest changes. Outro. The story of SB Mowing proves that sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest actions. What started as a young man with an old mower became a worldwide movement built on kindness, hard work, and compassion. Whether you believe the $893,000 lawn was a miracle or simply a powerful example of generosity, one thing is undeniable. Spencer's actions created a lasting impact. The question now is, what other acts of kindness are happening quietly around the world? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more incredible stories behind the internet's biggest moments.